everybody. This is Albert Bouchard from Blue Oyster Cult, and you are listening to All Over the Place podcast, where fun sanity never ends.
Hello and welcome back to All Over the Place, the official podcast of Media Pub Live. I'm your host Eric Provoznik, and we're a little light on staff tonight, but the staff that's here is always fun. Jim Culver, how are you?
I'm excellent, sir. And my best Alfred Hitchcock, good evening.
Very nice, very nice. So Marty and Christine both unable to join us this evening, but we have with us from the hinterlands of Western Pennsylvania, Brian Urso of Gideons Mob. Welcome to All Over the Place, Brian.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. And Brian, with Gideons Mob, you guys are it's prog rock, little ambient rock. Tell us here on All Over the Place a little bit more about Gideons Mob.
It's like it's definitely progressive rock with tinges of little hints of fusion and some progressive metal as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, a little bit of jazz thrown into it because I've been playing professionally since 1991, and my first two bands were a bebop jazz band. And from then on, I went back into progressive rock, which was always my first love. So, but yeah, that's what Gideons Mob is. It's like it's a party where Pink Floyd and Miles Davis are having a conversation with Iron Maiden. So that's sort of the best way to describe it.
That's one of those places I like to be the fly on the wall for that conversation.
Absolutely.
And one of the things I noticed, checking out, and you guys are available on Spotify. And where else can people listen to you? Either from a streaming platform or YouTube, anything like that.
iTunes, Apple, Spotify, Bandcamp. Where else? And YouTube. You can find us in the unmixed versions of the tunes are on SoundCloud.
Okay.
So you'll get like a little rougher version on SoundCloud.
Excellent. And for those of you who are only listening on one of our audio platforms, gideonsmob.com. So that's GIDEONSMOBBAND, gideonsmobband.com. I'll spell that a little bit better for people later. So, Brian, so what inspired you to that whole mix into that smorgasbord? What were your influences and what led you to just put them all into one big stew?
Well, my dad is awesome. My dad got me into music as a young kid. He introduced me to the Beatles and Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin. And from there, you get into that rabbit hole where then you discover bands like Yes and Jethro Tull and Rush. And it's endless. And at the same time, he also got me into people like Miles Davis and John Coltrane and George Benson, Pittsburgh's own George Benson.
That's right.
And later on, when I got into guitar, it was just like a big candy store of influences for me to get into. I think the biggest thing for me that I loved about progressive rock is that every song is a story. No matter if the song is 3 minutes or 30 minutes, it takes you somewhere and it leaves you there. It's pure escapism in its most naked form. That's what I love best about progressive rock. You don't get that in pop rock as much. You definitely don't get that in my experience. You don't get that with hip hop or rap, but this progressive rock, you definitely get taken to a place that doesn't exist on this planet. That's the best way to describe it. So what my goal is with Gideons Mob was to let people escape from this crazy world we live in, even if it's 3 minutes, or 8 minutes. That's the whole point of progressive rock and the whole genre. So that's how I approach it.
And you mentioned guitar, and with all these other different influences, whether it's Miles or George Benson, what else do you do? Singing, horns. What else is on your palette?
You mean for me to play or?
Yeah, all of the
I,
above.
I do play keyboards and bass, but that's it. The guitar, bass, and keyboards are my main instruments. I would love to get into playing the sitar. I've been thinking about that. I heard it's a bitch to learn. Excuse my French, but I heard it's very complicated. But the Beatles are my favorite band of all time, and to me, they're the progenitors of progressive rock. You listen to Revolver, and you listen to Sgt. Pepper's. That's progressive rock in its infancy. Mm-hmm. That's where it started. And George Harrison is one of my favorite guitarists, and that sitar always gets me right in the chest. So I haven't pulled the trigger on it yet, but I think eventually I'm going to get into sitar too. So I cheat now. I have a pedal that sounds like a sitar.
Okay.
So on one of the tracks from the first album, it's called Iowa Suite. There's a sitar in that, but it's my guitar, and I'm cheating big time. But I would like to learn how to play it, definitely.
Well, fake it until you can actually get it, proficient.
Absolutely.
And as a good Western Pennsylvania who has an accordion sitting a couple of yards from me, it's never too late to start and figure out the next instrument in your life.
No, absolutely not. I have fans that are like in their 30s or 40s, and I love learning how to play guitar. I'm like, well, just start. No one's saying you're going to be Jimmy Page. Just pick it up and have fun with it. That's the whole point of it.
And my guitar, which is a couple of feet from the accordion, I'm still the same player that I was 30 years ago when I got the guitar. So yeah, just play.
Do you have fun?
That's it. I'm 3/4 of the truth. What more do I need? Right. I know I'm not going to be George Harrison. I know I'm not going to be Jimmy Page.
Right.
I'll barely be. I don't even know who would. I'll barely be Billy Joe. So
right.
But so I just pick up an instrument, play it. Doesn't matter when you start.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned we're talking about prog, progressive rock, progressive metal. Tonight's Threefer. We've got a Threefer with our guest.
Okay.
And it's our 3 favorite progressive rock bands, and our plus one is just try as you might. It's just a band you can't get into, no matter what popular, conventional wisdom might say. Just can't do it. But we're starting on the positive tip. The 3 positives. Brian, we're going to go to you first. You're number 3. You're bronze. However you want to go.
So you want to go? Okay, bronze. Okay.
3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3. It's all over the place. You do what you want.
3, 2, 1's good. For my third, I picked King Crimson.
Oh,
I love King Crimson. I've been listening to them since the 90s, and it's just one of those bands that you either love or you hate. I think. After the Beatles gave us Revolver and Sgt. Pepper's, they were the Moody Blues, who I also love, did Days of Future Past. The first shot heard around the world in progressive rock that really nailed it was King Crimson. So they're my third pick, and I love Robert Fripp. He's an amazing guitarist. And a funny story, I had the that Cameo, those things where you can get people to say something, those famous people. I saw Robert Fripp on there, and I asked him to do like a little plug for Gideons Mob. And he said, I don't do that. He said, but I heard you're playing, and it's just amazing. And I said, that's it. I can die tomorrow. I'm good. That's
in the memory bank up top. You don't need to have that recorded for anybody.
Absolutely. That was just fantastic. I have it in writing though, so that's good.
Wow, love it.
That's my number 3 pick.
Yeah, Robert Fripp. Much love, Tony. We saw Tony Levin earlier this year with Peter Gabriel. That guy's just sick.
I met him once in 1997. He was playing for Seal. What a nice guy. Nice guy, but man, that guy can play. It's like he has 8 fingers. It's crazy. I saw King Crimson finally 3 years ago, and there were 9 people in the band. It was insane. 3 drummers. It was absolutely insane.
3 drummers?
Yeah. It was Gavin Harrison from Porcupine Tree and 2 other guys I forget. But man, it was amazing. So that's my number 3 pick. So Jim, you go ahead.
All right, Jim, over to you for your number 3.
Okay, so I'm going to preface this by saying I'm probably coming at this from a bit more of a normie perspective than you guys are. So, grain of salt and all that. My first pick is a band that it's funny. I don't really think of them as prog rock. I think of them as classic rock, but they really are prog rock, and that's Kansas.
Oh, I love that band.
Absolutely love them. So many great tunes. Carry On, My Wayward Son, Point of No Return. I get lost in those.
Oh.
It's like you said, Brian. You could just get lost in these and just kind of just lose yourself for a few minutes and not even think about anything. And I absolutely Kansas is one of those bands that just their tunes they just carry me away for 3, 4, 5 minutes of my life, and absolutely love them.
Those first 6 albums are absolutely amazing. Not one bad track on any of them.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think I've never heard a bad Kansas song in my life, but they're absolutely fantastic. And like I said, it's hard for me to get my head out of like just thinking of them as classic rock, because that's kind of the box that I put a lot of 70s rock bands into. But no, they're absolutely a fantastic prog rock band. So
absolutely.
And growing up in the Midwest, the Cleveland area, they're stuck there. And I never went beyond that. So right. They're classic rock, and it's for better or worse. And just one of these days, I'll get around to digging more, because I do like Point of No Return.
Yeah,
Wayward Son, and I've just heard that too many times. But I'll take Point of No Return as my starting point and go from there to delve.
You have to go like the songs like The Wall from the Magnum Opus album. It's just amazing. I mean, you got to listen to the tracks that aren't on the radio.
Right. Yeah.
Because they're just killer, absolutely killer band.
Well, with a little belated rest in peace to the ultimate album rock guy, the deep cut guy, Freeform Radio, for Jim Ladd, rest in peace. And I'll do a little digging on Kansas. I'll just do some deep cuts. Go off the beaten path. For me. And first, since Christine's not with us tonight, I want to give it. It was one of my honorable mentions. I'm pretty sure she was going to bring it up, but you mentioned them earlier, Brian. But Porcupine Tree, 21st century prog, and I didn't know anything about them, but Christine is a fan, and because we were starting to share playlists and everything, we're infecting each other's musical tastes. And but Porcupine Tree, I've really enjoyed them, and for me. As a Public Enemy fan, I was drawn to The Fear of a Blank Planet.
Oh, yeah.
And that song is just phenomenal. Turn it up. And speaking of turning it up, I'm going to go with my number 3 will be Genesis.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And I've got to admit, the Peter Gabriel proggier stuff, everything before Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, finding it difficult to get into. To me, it was just a little too arty for me. Yeah. And just the strings, the piano, all that. But irony of ironies, Peter Gabriel goes solo. I prefer him solo to Phil Collins solo years. But I prefer Phil Collins Genesis to the Peter Gabriel Genesis.
Okay, so you flipped it. Okay.
I flip it, exactly. But Genesis, but what I like about that, and for me, I have too much of a pop rock sensibility.
Right.
Songs that I've got to be in a very, very good mood or just the right mood for a song to go beyond 7-8 minutes.
Right.
Or even sometimes 5-6 minutes. But it's really got to engage me. And Genesis, what I think they were able to do, transitioning out from the Peter Gabriel years, and that's when I came in, when they were like Follow You, Follow Me, getting radio play, stuff like that in the late 70s and then into the early 80s with Duke and Abacab and Genesis, the self-titled from 83. I still play that constantly. And
well, you listened to Duke, and Duke showed the other prog rock bands that you can do 3-minute songs that are still progressive. Yeah. That's what's great about Duke. I love that album. It's a great album.
And then, but what everything here's the Catholic in me, everything in moderation. But when like Home by the Sea, Second Home by the Sea, Domino Parts 1 and 2, Brazilian, Dodo and Lurker,
all good.
Just a little bit at a time. I can be there for that more than 6, 7, 8 minutes.
Right.
I can go exploring with you. I dig that a little bit more. But that's
on the Genesis, the self-titled album, the one song, I Got a Name, that one, I Got a Name, I Got
a number. Yeah.
What's it called? What's it?
I Got a Line on You.
I Got a Line. Yeah. Just a Job to Do, I think it's called.
Just a Job. There it is. Just a Job to Do. Yeah.
I always thought that would be a great Bond thing.
Yeah. Oh, I never thought about that.
I think the producers, Cubby Broccoli in the 80s really dropped the ball on that. That would have been a great Bond thing.
Ooh. Yeah, one of the few bands from that time who didn't get a Bond. Well, once you had Duran Duran just set the bar way high for 80s bands.
That's a great one. Absolutely.
But that's a different show, folks. We might do a Bond theme later. But that Genesis, they're my strong number 3. Okay. So Brian, back to you for your number 2 or your silver, however you want to go.
Before I do my number 2, my honorable mention, like a really close number 4, almost made number 3, is Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
Mm-hmm.
I love that band. Keith Emerson, I broke down a lot of his solos on those albums and then transcribed them to guitar, a lot of his licks. So if you hear my playing, sometimes people think it's kind of odd or different at times. It's because I learned a lot of his piano stuff and transcribed it. So my phrasing sometimes is a little bit more like an organ player. And then sometimes it's more like a sax player, because what's the problem with being a guitarist or an organist is that you have almost endless endurance. If you're a sax player, you can only do so many notes before you pass out. So you can really bore people with long solos. So what Keith Emerson did, and what I do, is when I solo, I'll take a breath, and whenever it's time to breathe out, then I'll stop and then give some breath to the solo itself. But that's what Keith Emerson did, and I love that band. And Greg Lake is one of the most amazing songwriters ever. So they're my honorable mention, close third or close fourth. But my number 2 is Yes. I love Yes. My dad got me into Yes. Steve Howe is one of the greatest guitar players ever to walk the earth. The guy can do anything. Again, that's one of those bands that just take you somewhere, and you can't believe that you're where you're at. You listen to songs like Awaken or Close to the Edge, and even the more popular ones like Roundabout. It's just amazing. That band is such a huge influence on me, and that everybody in that band were just stellar musicians. Absolutely amazing.
I'm not going to say anything more right now, but I'm just going to nod my head and 100% agree.
Okay. So this is like Battleship. We already know what
where is Eric's piece going to go next? Yes, there it is. All right, but Jim, up to you now.
Okay. My second pick is probably the only modern band on my list, Muse.
Good band.
I think is fantastic English band. You can definitely hear all their influences in their music, but they really do something unique with that. They give everything kind of that intense driving tone. It's just every song is just absolute banger, and there's so much variety within what they play. I mean, you listen to something like Starlight, which sounds like the theme from a fantasy movie, and then something like Psycho, which it could be straight out of a horror flick, and they don't sound anything alike as far as the tone and everything. Just absolutely fantastic band. Everything. I've never heard a bad song by them, and everything they do is every tune they do is a little bit different, and it's just a ton of fun. Every album that I've listened to by them is just fantastic from top to bottom.
I had a guitar student about 6 years ago who brought in a song, and it was Muse, and I was like, man, who is this band? Holy shit, they're really good. Because I used to have students like bring in like the normal stuff, or they bring in shit like Green Day or real easy, like or Nirvana. like songs that would take you like 5 minutes to learn, and you're stuck with 15 minutes what to do with the student. But this one student brought in this song, and I'm like, damn, who the hell is this? They're really good. It was Muse. And I've been into them ever since. Man, what a band. What a good band.
I can't believe I didn't even think to do it, Jim. That's an awesome call. Muse didn't even think to put them into a Prog category. They're just,
yeah, absolutely,
just of a different world. But yeah, I'm going to steal that as an honorable mention. That's awesome. I like that call. Love it.
They also skirt the line between progressive rock and space rock. They have that little.
They do.
You know, there's almost a little bit of Hawkwind in there that you can almost hear. So it's like it sort of floats back and forth. Great band, by the way. I love that band, Hawkwind, especially the Lemmy years.
For Lemmy, Marty's not here. We're usually doing a lot of toasting. That's for Lemmy. Well, my number 2 is we've already heard about was someone else's number 2 or their silver. I go with Yes as well. Being right now, I was spoon-fed the radio stuff, so I was getting the shorter versions of All Good People. Roundabout, you mentioned that one. And then for me, more of my introduction to Yes was through the 90125 album,
right? Which
not a lot of lacking some of those original members from the Fragile and Close to the Edge and
great album
phase. But 90125 to me, that's a perfect album front to back.
Absolutely. Trevor Rabin is amazing.
Just it helps someone with me, the pop sensibilities, and then I was able to go back from there. And correct me, Tales from Topographic Ocean. Did I get the title of that album right?
That album. Love that album. Oh, so good.
Sid, you drop the needle on side 1, and it's 5 movements within just one song. I can deal with it. Yes, to me is one of they're the exception to the Prog rule.
Absolutely.
For me.
You know, it's fun when they were doing Tales of Topographic Oceans, they wanted to record it in the wilderness, like outside, which funny enough, Rush later did with the song Trees. They did that outside. But what they did was, since they couldn't go out, John Anderson brought in like plastic cows and like hay and like fake trees in the studio just to get this, I guess, a vibe going. But that was it. That's how they did the Topographic Oceans. I love Yes, man. That band is just amazing. And like you said, 90215, 901, whatever, I forget the name of it. But if it wasn't for Trevor Rabin, that band would have been done, because he really picked them up and said, this is what we're going to do now, and put them in this direction that you can do 4-minute songs that are still proggy as hell, you know?
Yeah.
And it was such a great era too. Absolutely.
And John Anderson, just one of the greatest voices.
Oh,
whatever genre you want to go, John Anderson is the shit.
Oh, you hear him, you automatically know who it is. It's like a painting that comes to life. Whatever he sings, you know.
All right, well, that is my number 2. Before we move forward, I just want to remind our listeners that you are listening to All Over the Place, the official podcast of Media Pub Live. And tonight we've got with us our guest from Gideons Mob, Brian Urso. And Brian, I now turn it over to you for your number 1 or your gold medal.
My gold medal. Yes, when you said when you were kind of weird, and I said it's like a battleship. I thought your Yes was going to be your Can't Stand. So I was kind of surprised to hear. I was relieved to hear that was your silver. I
was nodding my head with you.
Okay.
I hope that's nobody's Can't Stand. Yes, is freaking awesome, man.
Yeah. My gold number 1 is Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd. They started out psychedelic and space rock, but then they turned into progressive rock, and that band is just amazing. Roger Waters and David Gilmour, Rick White, and even the Syd Barrett years. It just from 66 to 77, that's the best era of Pink Floyd. I mean, I have the Wall and stuff afterwards, but that 10-year period, they're just unstoppable. I mean, they broke the rules when it came to the album. I mean, they were progressive rock along the time before Pink Floyd, but when Metal came out, which is my favorite album, and you hear Echoes, which is 23 minutes, and it doesn't feel like 23 minutes. That's the amazing thing. And David Gilmour is in my top 5 of my biggest influences on guitar. And that guy's just killer. I mean, he's another one that his phrasing is incredible. He doesn't play a million notes like my other hero, Steve Vai, but what every note that David Gilmour plays is amazing. You know, he'll play half the notes that I play, but they're all brilliant. I mean, Roger Waters,
that tone, you know immediately that you're listening to David Gilmour. I didn't. First time I heard "Give My Regards," "No More Lonely Nights."
Yeah,
McCartney on the.
That solo is killer.
So I'm like, that's Gilmour.
Oh,
got the liner notes. Yep, that's Gilmour.
It's like a milky fog. That's the only way to describe his tone. It's just so thick, and it's just Oh, so that's my number one is Pink Floyd.
Well, and I'm about to commit some blasphemy here in a Pink Floyd fans because I'm a casual fan. Nothing against them. Dig them.
Right.
But I'm Dark Side of the Moon is up there. That's like the conventional wisdom number. I'm a huge fan. It was the first one after Roger Waters left. I love Momentary Lapse of Reason.
It's a good album. Absolutely. It's a good album. My only complaints about the post Waters era is that you don't have that darkness and the edge to it. Because he definitely brings that. The bitterness in him comes out on tape. And it's kind of, I love those albums. I love Pulse, Division Bell. That to me even sounded more like 70s Pink Floyd.
Well, speaking of Pulse, is the red light on your live CD, is that still flashing?
No, mine only lasted about 4 years and it stopped. And then I broke it, and so I went and bought another one, but this one didn't have the damn thing on it. I was so pissed. So I'm screwed. So yeah, it will last about 4 years.
90s gimmicks to get people to buy their CDs.
Absolutely.
Yeah. See, for me, Floyd is one of those bands that I mentally file it under classic rock, and it just stays there. But then I listen to it and think about it for 5 minutes, and I go, "This is absolutely progressive rock. Why have I never even considered that?"
Right.
You know. But they're of course absolutely amazing. I mean, nothing I can say hasn't already been said about them. But yeah, they're absolutely amazing. And like you said about the Beatles, they really kind of laid down the template for prog rock.
Absolutely.
Going forward.
What's your number one, Jim?
Jim, to you for your number one, yes.
Okay. I'm going to throw out a couple of honorable mentions beforehand. Styx.
Oh. So good.
Tool.
Yep.
And Jethro Tull.
Yeah.
Love them all. But my number one, it's a really obvious pick, and again, I apologize to Eric if I'm stealing his, but it's an obvious pick, but I cannot tell a lie. It's my absolute favorite prog rock band, Rush.
Oh, yep.
They're absolutely fantastic. They're the band that got me into prog rock.
Yep.
In high school, and favorite tune, Free Will. Never get tired of that one, but I mean, all their stuff is just amazing, absolutely love them.
My favorite tune has got to be Xanadu, hands down. That's my favorite. I never saw them because when they came in the '90s, I was at university, and when they came another time, I was studying for my finals, so I never saw them. I finally saw them on their last damn tour, 2015, and oh my God, was it worth it? It was just
the only downside of that tour. I was at the last show in LA at the Forum, and they played nothing from my favorite album by them, which is Power Windows. Now I realize it's blasphemy to prog rock people, but Power Windows, and they're balancing those fine lines between rock radio or pop rock radio and prog and Mystic Rhythm.
The Manhattan Project, man, what a tune! Oh, that song's amazing. And even Big Money, I love. Big Money is just fantastic. My only complaint about Rush in the 80s was that, and this isn't Alex's fault, all guitarists did this, but he got away from the Gibsons and Les Pauls, and he went into the, the Strat style, body style, and his tone wasn't as good as it was then, but all guitarists did that. They sort of like, but that's a whole other story. So why? I know why they did that, because Gibson was crap in the 80s, but that's a different show. So, But yeah, I love Power Windows. Power Windows is amazing.
For sure.
Wait, and yeah, no beef for me on that one, Jim, because I came in, I was more of an '80s guy and less on the Xanadu and the trees and all that stuff. But again, it's Rush. Please, you can't go wrong. It's virtuosos on every instrument, and yeah, can't argue with Rush. For my honorable mentions, I'm going to throw a couple of Dream Theater, just to prove I have listened to music past the '80s. And but Mike Portnoy is the sickest drummer that
He's amazing.
Needs more attention. Well, I shouldn't say he needs more attention. How many super bands is he in, Brian?
Every week he's a different one. Every week he's different. John Petrucci, man, that guy is an amazing player. They have this one DVD where they play in Japan, and he does this long solo, and he incorporates the one of the themes from Star Wars in it, and then he does George Harrison's "Within You, Within Me" in it, and then he does this long solo, and I'm like, Jesus! And then, I don't know how he gets his energy. The guy's amazing. He's a monster. He's literally a mutant. That's the only explanation. Nobody should be allowed to play that good.
Yeah, it's much love to Dream Theater. And another band, they kind of walk the line between krautrock and instrumentals, but Tangerine Dream.
Oh, great!
Who I got to know through soundtracks in the '80s, whether it was Risky Business or Thief, and an underappreciated movie. And we need to dedicate a show, as far as I'm concerned, to 3 O'Clock High. But they did the music for that.
Yeah,
and just they do what a composer is supposed to do, and I remember scenes based off of what I'm hearing in my head right now.
Absolutely,
they did.
Absolutely.
So much love for Tangerine Dream.
Before you do your number one, can I throw in a couple honorable mentions?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all over the place, Brian, and you're our guest. Go.
I would say Jethro Tull is one of my favorites. Another band that I love that nobody really knows about is Nectar. It's a British prog rock, but they don't get the praise they deserve. You've heard of them if you've ever watched The Jeffersons. Funny story.
Oh,
Sherman Hemsley, who is George Jefferson, was a huge progressive rock fan. Huge. And he was good friends with all the guys from Yes and Rick Wakeman and everybody. But he loved this band Nectar, and he had their music sometimes on the show. Yeah. That people always think I'm making that up. I'm like, no, he loved progressive rock, So Nectar, I love. You mentioned Styx, Jim. I love Styx. And the other, what was the other honorable mention I was going to say? Caravan, which is another band that which is from the what they call Canterbury sound in England. If you have never heard Caravan is awesome. They are psychedelic progressive rock, and they are great. And also Hawkwind. If you never listen to Hawkwind, I highly recommend Hawkwind.
I've never heard them before. I'll have to give them a listen after hearing that.
Check out Hawkwind, and as Brian mentioned earlier, the Lemmy years. He left in what, 75, 76, somewhere in
76, I think. Yeah, and it is so good. Hawkwind is amazing. It's such a great.
Good starter. I'd say go to the song Hawkwind,
or the song Silver Machine.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I always tell people to start with that because you might know it because it's a lot of times in a lot of movies they use that song.
Okay.
So,
Jim, Brian,
I'll definitely check that out.
Jim doesn't know a lot about movies. That's a joke. See, Jim's on movie trivia with Jim. So,
okay, do your number one, Eric. Do your number one.
My number one is I got one more quick honorable mention. You brought up Trevor Rabin earlier, but when Yes was kind of splintering, but Asia.
Oh yeah.
Their first Asia, and then Alpha and Astra. Those first 3 albums, and then when they came back to Asia 30, the Triple X album.
Yes.
Brought back the voices. That again, for someone who was more suited for pop radio at the time, Asia was a nice gateway to going back into the older stuff. And
absolutely
love those guys. But my number one is there. A lot of people think of them as just heavy metal, and they are one of the top probably 5, maybe they're in my top 3 heavy metal bands of all time. And the number 2 heavy metal voice of all time in Bruce Dickinson. Iron Maiden
Absolutely
is my number one.
I'm
And
so glad you picked that. I'm so glad you picked that because a lot of metalheads get mad at me for saying that they've been progressive metal since day one, but it's true. It's absolutely true.
Well, again, the stories that you get within it from Steve Harris in the writing, and just then Bruce Dickinson comes in and Power Slave, really exploring the longer theme songs, and especially in the 21st century, they're following that muse more and more with each album, and the last two being double albums. Senjutsu, and as much as I like Book of Souls, Senjutsu took it to the next level. And
my favorite
I will listen to that 13, 14, 16-minute long songs. It's Iron Maiden.
Absolutely. My favorite Iron Maiden song of all time is from Final Frontier, and it's Isle of Avalon. Oh my God. Oh, what a song. That's one of those songs I'm like, God damn, I wish I wrote that song. It is so good. It is, and what kills me is they're like almost 50 years into their career and they're doing some of their best stuff ever. It's
Absolutely
amazing. It's amazing. Nobody does that.
Well, up the irons, and I'm doing that. I think Marty, if he were joining us tonight, I was joking with Jim before we started recording, and I think Marty's votes would have been Iron Maiden, and Iron Maiden, numbers 3, 2, and 1.
Oh, love Maiden. Love Maiden.
Well, with all the love we've just given, folks, we're now going to flip it. Here on All Over the Place, and now we're going into a prog band that no matter how much you try, no matter you just can't wrap your head around it. Brian, we go to you first.
Mine is Porcupine Tree. I can't get into that band. I'll be honest with you. I'll be fair. It isn't Porcupine Tree. It's what's the lead guy? Steve. Who's the lead singer of Porcupine?
This is Christine's band. If she were here, she is.
I'll look it up real
leave the studio quickly, but yeah, she would know.
I try to get into them, and Steve Wilson. That's it. I try to get into them. I can't get into it. I think the band itself, other than Steve Wilson, they're a great band. Gavin, the drummer, is absolutely phenomenal. Like I said before, I saw him with King Crimson. That dude's amazing. That dude is the soul of Porcupine Tree. But I can't get into them. They always seem like a kind of a watered down version of Floyd. And Steve Wilson's mouth off the record he's obnoxious. He's obnoxious. He says stupid shit like, I can't get into Joe Satriani. I'd rather listen to David Gilmour. That to me tells me I'm pissed off because I can't play fast. Because I used to have students like that. Oh, Steve Vai and Satriani and Yngwie have no soul. Bullshit. You just can't play that fast. You don't have the chops.
Work on your scales, boys. Work on your scales.
And so when Wilson says shit like that, pisses me off. On the day Eddie Van Halen died, he made
don't.
Oh,
there's no Van Halen blasphemy in this house.
I love Van Halen. Don't know.
I know it's not you. You're going through someone else. I know.
He said nasty comments on the day he died. The day he died. I'm like, what the hell is your problem, dude? So the band is okay. He spoils it for me, if that makes sense. So that's my pick. So
I would say that about many bands.
He is a good producer, though. The reissues that he has done for Jethro Tull are very, very good. He should stick to that. That's my thing. So.
Well, with that in mind, when we're done, I'm going to go down. I'm going to throw on Fair Warning and just turn it up.
The best Van Halen album of all time.
In a word, duh. Yeah.
My fingers hurt just thinking about that album. It's just sickening.
It's the shortest Van Halen album, but that just means you got to play it twice in a row.
Oh, you just like Mean Streets. That album just rips your face off. That's the only way to describe it. It's just. We better quit now. This could be a whole other show. Favorite Van Halen songs. That'd be a 4-hour show with me and Marty. But for now though, we're gonna skip it up to you, Jim, for your +1.
Okay, well, first going back to Brian's point, I've had so many bands that have been spoiled for me by their lead singer shooting their mouth off about this or that. We could probably do a whole threefer about that.
That's a
that
show
would
in
be
of itself too.
that would be so the most bitter threefer in history. But anyway, so I'm probably gonna this is probably gonna be blasphemy here, but my pick is gonna be Tangerine Dream because have never been able to get into them.
Yeah.
They're I know a lot of people love them. They're insanely talented. I'm not saying anything ill about that. They're just a little bit too out there for me, a little bit too psychedelic, I guess. They're just not my style. So I've never really been able to get into them. And yeah, they're on a lot of great soundtracks, but like them being on Michael Mann's Thief is one of the weirdest soundtrack inclusions in history, like so incongruous with the tone of the film that it always takes me out of that movie. Yeah. So just one of those things. It's just bizarre. So I've just never been able to get into them. I can't really dig with them, but
I think they're one of those bands like King Crimson. You either love them or you hate them.
Right.
That's it. But I agree with you about the Thief. I mean, a good like you said, it depends on the person, but a good songsmith, if you're doing a soundtrack for an album, you don't want to overtake the movie itself. And
right.
and like you said, it takes you out of it sometimes with that. So I get it. No, I agree.
Well, that was Michael Mann's first movie, right, Jim? Thief?
I believe so. Yeah. I think. Well, I never saw Manhunter might have been the year before that. I can't remember.
No, Manhunter. Manhunter. He got himself squared away because Thief was early '80s. Manhunter was 86, 81. Maybe 87, but that range. Yeah, but Thief was first, and then Manhunter was second. So at least music-wise, he at least got his head on straight with who he brought in for Manhunter.
Oh, absolutely. And pretty much every movie after the soundtracks to, Heat and Public Enemies and all of those are just absolutely incredible. Yeah. I have no other beef with any of his other soundtracks. It just, that one to me was just a bizarre inclusion in a gritty crime movie. So.
Yeah. Oh, and before I go to my plus one, which is going to ruffle some feathers, it will. I want to give another of Christine's. This would be an honorable mention for hers. I think she was going to say, just because, again, limited doses, Explosions in the Sky. A lot of soundtrack work for them as well, but just they start meandering. She's limited doses for Christine, so I know she's going to bring them up as an honorable mention. But that now we move on to my plus one, and this is Emerson, Lake and Palmer, ELP. Hear me out on this one though, Brian.
I gotta go. See ya.
Hear me out. Pull to Marty.
Yep.
And like you said earlier, in your praise of that, and I will praise their individual talents. Mm-hmm. Emerson, and Cozy Powell. Geez, that guy is sick.
Oh, rest in peace, man. What
There's a reason he's brought in. Why Phil Collins brought him in for his first two solo albums. Phil's a drummer. I'm sorry, I'm not Phil Collins. Okay, I'm getting confused. Robert Plant brought him in. He brought in Phil Collins and Cozy Powell. That's how much he respected both of those guys for his first two solo albums.
Yep.
And Cozy may have crept into the third one. I can't remember. But
off the topic, real quick, another honorable mention that I consider progressive rock is Rainbow, the early years.
Yeah.
And Cozy Powell on those albums is just a monster. Oh my God.
And so for me, and with ELP, the sum of the parts never worked for me together.
I get it.
But individually, every one of those guys are at the top of their class.
Right.
And deserve the kudos for playing shit. You can't beat it. But coming together, ELP, I've tried, the 1 to 2 songs they even had on the radio.
Yeah.
But Prog friends of mine through the years have tried to nudge me in their direction. I tried. I really tried. But SEP here, not a fan of ELP.
So. I forgive you.
I'll put you down with OPP.
But folks, that's a lot of prog rock bands, and we only had overlap on one band. Brian and I just overlapped on Yes.
Right.
Both our
that was a nice mixture of people, definitely. I'm glad you mentioned Styx, Jim, because that's a band that again, gets thrown into classic rock, but that is a progressive rock band since the first album.
Oh, for sure.
Especially their 70s stuff, like Pieces of Eight. I mean, they're all over the place. It's just such a good band. And Tommy Shaw's guitar tone is just, as soon as Tommy Shaw starts playing, you know exactly who it is. Such a good player, such a good band.
Well, while we're in that mood, that straddling the line between classic rock and prog rock in that era, Brian, where do you put pre-Steve Perry Journey?
I would put them more in the fusion.
That'd be a better description. Yeah,
because they almost have like a Jeff Beck, Blow by Blow and Wired vibe to them on those albums. I love those albums. Those albums don't get enough praise. Neil Sean is just that guy can play guitar like nobody's business. Every day on Twitter, he puts like these little clips of him just warming up, and I'm like, holy shit, I gotta go practice.
You bastard.
Yeah. So, but I would that era is so good, but I would consider that because you forget, Neil Sean started with Santana,
right?
So he has that jazzy fusion built into him. So I think he carried a lot of that over to the early Journey stuff. So I would say like fusion-y Jeff Beck era. That's where I'd put them. But they're really good. Those albums don't get the attention they deserve.
The era of the 8-track.
I still have 8 tracks.
There I go dating myself again. But well, folks, again, thanks for listening tonight to All Over the Place. Brian Urso of Gideons Mob, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you, Jim.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, good to meet you.
GideonsMobBand.com, GideonsMobband.com.
Right.
Thanks again, everyone, for listening to All Over the Place. On behalf of Christine and Marty, thanks a lot, everybody. Take care. We'll be back real soon.
Thanks, guys.
All Over the Place, where the fun sanity never ends.